Anthony, I apologize. How do you pronounce your last name?
It is Luscre.
Luscre. All right. So we'll be hearing from Anthony Luscre, K8ZT, on making digital contacts and HF and VHF. Take it away, Anthony.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to cover FT8 and FT4. We're also going to talk about some other digital modes that are available out there. This is my contact information. The slideshow is available at tiny.cc/digiqso, or you can shoot the QR code. I'll also have the QR code available at the end. Anytime you see this symbol, that means there's a link in the slideshow or this font. So there's a number of resources in the slideshow that you're going to want to have access to. And again, tiny.cc/digiqso. The purpose of the slideshow is to help hams new to digital modes get on the air and make contacts. We'll talk a little bit about VHF and UHF, HF and VHF, UHF opportunities for digital contacts, what you can do with various license classes, what you need, how to find potential contacts, and some techniques. So first of all, just a little bit about HF. I'm not sure, there might be some people that aren't involved with HF, but many of us got into ham radio for the lure of talking with hams in far away and exotic sounding places around the world. And these are all QSL cards from stations I've worked. To do this magic directly without wires, satellites, or the internet, using radio, we need to use HF or high frequency radio bands with worldwide propagation. When you look at the allocation chart, you'll see that general class and extra class hams have access on all the HF bands. The technician class licensees have voice and digital capabilities on 10 meters only. So they do not have the rest of the HF bands to do digital on. They do have VHF and UHF. We'll talk a little bit about that also. So with a tech license, HF contacts are limited to single sideband and digital only on 10 meters. That's probably the most common infraction that the FCC sends out warning letters for is technicians operating FT8 or FT4 on one of these CW bands that they have access to, 40 meters, etc. Just a reminder, you cannot operate FT8, FT4 as a technician on any band except for 10 meters and the VHF, UHF bands. A general class license will provide you access on all the HF bands. So the bottom line is get a general or extra class license if you want to be able to operate digital contacts on all the bands. Now there is some FT8, FT4 activity on 6 meters on a regular basis, and there is some on 2 meters, but the activity on 2 meters and 440 is mainly during the VHF UHF contest 4 times a year. If you're interested in single sideband, I have a presentation similar to this that I put together on making sideband contacts on HF, and if you're interested in CW, I have a presentation on that. You can get to both those by clicking on the links. You can watch the slideshow. You can also watch you can view the slideshow, and you can also watch a video recording of me doing it.
I thought it was you getting physicals.
So FT8 and FT4 are now by far the most popular digital modes, and in many cases they're the most popular mode for many hams, replacing single sideband and CW as their most active mode. But there are other digital modes. RTTY is a digital mode that's been around for many years, but is mainly used in contesting now in some DX operations. It has no error correcting or smart connecting. It is basically a dumb digital mode. It doesn't require very difficult equipment, so it's easy to work, but it does take a while. It's not real fast, and it is susceptible to propagation issues. Packet radio was popular on VHF in the 1980s and 90s. It was used for point-to-point contacts, but was even more popular for store and relay functions similar to today's email and internet. There is still some packet activity, mostly involving emergency communications. PSK 31 and PSK 63 were popular in the early 2000s. It is useful as a direct keyboard P2P type of mode with conversation possibilities. There's no limitations on the number of characters as there are in FT8 and FT4. But there's not a lot of activity since the beginning of FT8 and FT4. There's also a wide variety of what I'll refer to as sound card modes, which I'll talk about what that is a little bit later. But everything from Domino, Hellschreiber, MSFK, MT63, Navtex, Olivia, Thor, Throb, WeFax, and more. These have limited usage, but they are out there and available. The nice thing is, all these digital modes we'll talk about tonight, once you set your radio up to operate FT8, FT4, you can easily operate any of these other digital modes with just a change in software. No hardware changes necessary. Digital modes used for MCOM include VARA AC, VARA FM, Pactor, and WinLink, and I'll talk a little bit about those later. So I mentioned sound card modes, or SCM. The reason why these are called sound card modes is most of these can be done using a computer's and radio's sound card. So you use a computer sound card to bring in the audio from your radio to be processed by software to decode the information embedded in the signal. So it's very similar to what we do with voice, but instead of demodulating it and then playing it out of a speaker, we extract the information via a computer program. When we're sending out information, again, the software encodes the message into audio tones. Those audio tones are then sent out via your sound card to your radio's audio or mic input. Typically, there are 4 parts to a station capable of sound card mode communication. Radio capable of single sideband transceive. There are a few FM uses with the VARA, I'll mention a little bit later, but not with FT8 and FT4. A sound card interface. This can be built into the radio, or it can be an external sound card device. A computer and appropriate software. The radio acts the same as it would during single sideband transmission, sending and receiving signals with multiple tones and amplitudes. Different types of digital communications use different schemes, but we'll just lump them all together and say they're just a variation in the audio that's being sent. The sound card simply takes the incoming audio of the receiver and inputs it into the computer's incoming audio channel. Conversely, the sound card takes the encoded audio out of the computer and feeds it into the radio's microphone jack or other jack on the radio. The magic of these modes actually takes place not in the sound card, but in the software running on the computer. The sound card is just a way we transfer that encoded information. The encoded info is inputted via keyboard into an audio signal to be sent to the radio via the sound card. The software decodes the signal and shows it on the screen as text. So let's talk about if you have a radio and you want to do these sound card modes or any of these digital modes. You have 2 options. You can have a radio that has a built-in sound card or a radio without a sound card. If your radio has a built-in sound card, you're all ready to go. You can simply interface it to your computer and you'll have sound card capability. If your radio does not have a sound card interface, you can purchase an external sound card interface or build one from a kit, and then you can interface it to your computer. Once you do this, your computer will have the ability to handle any of these digital modes we're going to talk about. So if you install one of 2 programs, you'll have access to all these sound card modes. So if you install WSJTX, you'll have FT8, FT4, JT65, and a couple other modes that are mainly used for propagation purposes, for EME, for meteor scatter, etc. But they're all part of the WSJTX suite. If you install a piece of software called FLDigi, you will add these other options. FLDigi does not do FT8 or FT4, but it does do PSK31, 63, and all the ones I talked about earlier. Plus, it will also do a crude version of CW decode. If you add one more thing, and that is a software-based modem. So in other words, you install software and that software acts as a modem. This VARA modem software allows you to do any of the WinLink, VARA AC, VARA FM, VARA chat, and VARA images. Now, all these 2 programs are free. These programs are free, but this software is a paid piece of software. So if you want to do that, to do the full features of it, you need to purchase a license for that software. So what do you need? You need an HF radio or a VHF radio that's capable of single sideband. You need an HF antenna, a feed line to connect the radio to the antenna, a radio sound card, whether it's either built in or external, a computer interface to the radio, and digital software such as WSJTX. There's really four types of interfaces: radios with built-in sound cards, interfaces with built-in sound cards, interfaces without a built-in sound card, and a radio without a sound card but capable of direct connection to the sound card in your computer. So I put together this little chart, and this is already outdated because some other radios have came out since then. But radios with built-in sound cards include most of the radios built in the last 10 years or 10 plus years, with a few exceptions, and I'll mention those. These are all radios that you can do with built-in sound cards. You don't need anything else. And one is only $69. It's available as a kit. It's the QDX from QRP Labs. It's a 5-watt radio, but it has a built-in sound card, and it's ready to operate the digital modes as it ships. Radios that do not have sound cards that are either recently discontinued or still available include the ICOM 718 and the Yaesu 891, which are both still available. Both great radios, but they don't have sound cards. So if you want to do that, you need to add an external interface. There are some radios that will work without a sound card interface, directly plugging into the computer sound card, but I would still use an interface for most of those cases. Now, I'm only talking about radios that are under $2,000. There are more radios out there, but I didn't mention them. This is the QDX. It's a simple little digital radio. It handles 4 bands. There's 2 different modes of it, a low band and a high band. The low band one covers 80, 40, 30, and 20 meters. Gives you 5-watt output. You can use it for WSJ. You can use it for FT8, FT4 very easily, and a number of the other sound card modes, but not all of them. Some of them will not work with this, so just be aware that it doesn't cover all the sound card modes. It's $69. The case is extra. If you want it built and the case included, you can get it for, I think, $105. It's a great way to get started, and you don't need anything else besides this and a computer and your antennas. And of course something to power it with. If you do need an external sound interface, there's a number of them. Probably the most popular one that most people know about is the Signal Link. But if I was buying one today, I would suggest taking a look at the DigiRig Mobile. It's much smaller, it's much cheaper than the Signal Link, and it actually functions better. Take a look at that if you're interested. Here's the links for each of the ones. This is the DigiRig Mobile. It's only $49 if you build your own cables. If you buy cables for it, you're going to end up spending a little bit more, maybe $70 or $80 by the time you're done. If you're looking at buying radios, I have a whole presentation on that, and that has a listing in there showing you which radios have built-in sound cards and which don't. And of course, you need an antenna, and I have a whole other presentation on that. So the software you're going to need for FT8, FT4 is one of 2 packages. The most common one is WSJTX, and it's an open source software, so there are some variants of it also, but go with the basic when you're getting started. JS8 Call is another program that can do FT8, FT4, but it's designed more for peer-to-peer keyboard use, and it's a little bit different. So I would again suggest if you're just starting out, start out with the WSJTX software. For the other digital modes I talked about earlier, FL Digi is the software that you want. This is a link to download it. This is a link for more information from the person that puts it together. These are all open source free software. For WinLink, there's WinLink Express. That's the one that's used on HF, single sideband. VARA FM, which is used mainly on VHF and UHF. VARA AC, which is a little bit different. These are more message handling systems. VARA AC is a peer-to-peer, real-time keyboard chat to each other type of software, but it functions the same way as the other ones, but it's designed for individuals working each other, whereas the first 2 are designed to push your messages to a gateway, and then they're handled from that gateway, so they're not sent directly to this other station. If you are interested, here's the information on the VARA modem. You can click on this link and get the information and details on it, and you can register it from this page. You buy a license from it it's $69 currently, and that gives you the ability to use this software. By the way, I want to mention before I move on, because I'm not going to talk a lot more about these. These give you the ability to push email out very easily in emergency situations. So they're great for passing traffic. To do this sort of thing with other hardware, such as Pactor 3 or Pactor 4, you'd be talking thousands of dollars as opposed to the $69 for this modem. These are all links that you can click on for help when setting up different radios with WSJTX and doing FT8, FT4. I actually put together one on the K3 because there wasn't one when I first started doing this, and I put that together a few years ago. Basically, making a digital contact, choose the data mode on the radio if your radio has a data mode. Otherwise, you're going to use upper sideband on your radio for FT8 and FT4 and lower sideband for all the other digital modes. You need to tune to the designated frequencies. Each of these modes has a specific suggested frequency. It's very much controlled with FT8 and FT4. As you'll see, the software actually jumps you to that frequency. You don't even have to tune the radio. Then you would listen, decode stations, and you can then contact the station, or you can call CQ to initiate contacts. FT8 and FT4 are limited to 14 characters per transmission, so it's pretty much a exchange call signs, exchange signal reports, and you're done. You're not going to sit and chat with it. If you want to chat, PSK 31 or 63 are probably the way to go, or JS call. This is a little video. I'm not going to play it now, but a video demonstrating it so you can actually play that. Let's talk a little bit about what FT8 can do and what it cannot do. It has automatic logging to an ADIF file that's built into the software, so you don't have to worry about logging. It logs it for you. You can move that to your log either automatically by setting up a few settings on the software, or you can transfer it as an ADIF file. So it's very easy to transfer your log to other services. It also lets you know how strong your station is and how the stations you're decoding. It works with almost any single sideband radio, including VHF and UHF. JS call is the only thing that'll do rag chewing. You can't rag chew with FT8, FT4. You can't work without a computing device, although there are a few radios coming out now that have built-in WSJTX capability, or FT8, FT4 capability. You can't work with a CW-only radio because you need to modulate the audio signal. And you can't work a station without an operator. I'll give you a demonstration of that in a moment here. So, a couple other myths. FT8 and FT4 do not require an internet to make QSOs. The internet can be useful for other services, such as finding out the location of the other station and things of that nature, but they're not required to make contacts. You do need to have a time standard that keeps your time synchronized on your computer, but you can do that with a GPS, dongle, or other purposes as opposed to an internet connection. No operator is required. No, the operator has to be there to operate. No operator skill is required. Well, if it wasn't, no skill was required, everyone would have 300 countries already on FT8 and FT4, and I know very few people that have that. There's no homebrew kits. Well, we already showed you one kit that's available, and only new radios can be used. That's another myth. Here's an example of what happens when no one's sitting at the station. Now, I leave my station on all night, so it sits there and decodes, and it'll spit information out to this PSK reporter, which is an aggregator that pulls in information from stations around the world. To use that, you do need internet access, but it's not involved in actually making the contacts. It just reports on what you're decoding. And I was being decoded at DP0 GVN down in Antarctica on 160 meters for over 20 minutes. Unfortunately, there was no one sitting there, so even though I kept calling, they were decoding me, but they never responded, so I'm assuming the operator was out of the room. I tend to leave my radio on during the wintertime on 160, so I'm decoding signals from here. You don't have to use a new radio. Here's an Argonaut 509 hooked up with an audio interface. Of course, I don't have computer interface capability on the radio, so I had to manually tune the dial, but it worked just fine. I operated FT4 with my radio that was about 50 years old at the time. By the way, if you're interested in the Ten-Tech radios, I have a whole presentation called The Odyssey of the Argonauts. You can go out and read the presentation or view the video. So here's some resources to go along with it, and then I'll give a quick demonstration. So this little talk I talked about tonight was just an overview of digital modes, but if you want a whole presentation on FT8, FT4, you can click on this link and go to that. You can shoot this QR code and you can go through my 100 slides or whatever it is in that presentation. If you're just getting started with VHF or UHF, or just getting started with HF, there's a link here. It's suitable for sharing in your local newsletter. It goes through the whole thing. Each of these are 4 one-hour recordings of information along with a slideshow for VHF, UHF beginners, and for HF beginners. And these are all available for free for you to view. They're from the Rat Pack group. I also have a slideshow that helps you assess your station's capability. So if you're doing FT8 and FT4 and not getting very good results, this will help you out. These are all links of presentations from the Rat Pack group on WinLink and VARA. You can click on any of these links and go out to those and watch the videos for those. If you're new to HF and you don't have a radio to listen, you can buy an HF radio, you can buy a HF receiver, general coverage receiver, buy an SDR dongle. But I suggest if you're new and you don't have time or money to do that, and you don't have an antenna up, I have a whole presentation on using online software-defined radios. There's over 175 of these. You get to tune them to whatever bands you want from the bands they cover. Has a great antenna. You can pick one anywhere in the world. And if you want to do FT8 and FT4 listening, you won't be able to transmit. These are receive only. You can tie it together using internal free audio software, such as VB Audio, a virtual software that ties the software-defined radio to the WSJTX software so you can decode it. So this is the end of the presentation. Again, tiny.cc Digi QSO. I'll be happy to answer questions, and I'm also going to give a quick demo of FT8, FT4, which will also help answer some questions. So while I'm setting up, and I'm ready to go now, this is the WSJTX software. I know it's going to be a little hard to see, so I'm going to change the share, and I'm going to share a little bit differently here so we can see a little bit better. Maybe. Let's see if we can. Oh. There we go. So I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see this a little better. Any questions while I'm getting this screen set up? Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on part of this first, then we'll zoom out to the other portions. So this is the WSJTX software right here. And what's happening is I'm on 17 meters and it's decoding stations. The stations that are in green are stations calling CQ. The stations that are in white are stations conversing with each other. The station on the right is the one we're decoding. The station on the left is the station they're talking to. This is the receive screen. It shows all the stations that are being received. So we're receiving a KW6, a CO7. If they're in gray, that means I've worked them before. If they're in purple, that means I need them this year for the DX Marathon. But I actually just worked this station while I was waiting a little earlier. So we're going to double click on this station right here that's saying 73. It's 4V1 Savannah, which is in Haiti. So by double clicking on him, I am now enabled my transmit, and I'm going to be transmitting here, and you'll see it show up down the bottom where it says receiving. So right now I'm still receiving. There's a 15-second timer at the bottom. Everything is done in 15-minute segments, an even segment and an odd segment. So I'm transmitting right now. I'm transmitting on the odd segment. That's the 15 seconds after and 45 seconds after. You can see right down here. I'll transmit for 12.5 seconds, and then the computers will sit there and try and decode what's been sent. So I've transmitted my call to the CQ for 4V1 SAVN. And let me show you real quick one other thing I forgot to do here because I needed to do it. It's not going to work without that. Down at the bottom here, there's a little graph. I need to find an empty spot where there's no other stations. So instead of tuning the station in like you do on other modes, we actually find a spot on the band map and we find an empty spot, because we don't want to interfere with anyone. It doesn't matter where we're calling, because everyone's going to be decoding the whole band of 4 kilohertz here. So that station went back to another station, and normally I'd have to shut up and not call. But because I'm not calling on their frequency, I can continue to call that station. I'm not interfering with the QSO that he's doing or she's doing. So I can sit there and call, and I can keep on calling until my timer times me out. I think I have it set for 8 transmissions, and then it'll shut it down, but I can restart it again. So right now they sent a -12 to the station KI0AR, and I am now going to watch and see if they contact me. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see a little bit better here. Now, they just called another station, so they're not answering me. Let's go through the little fields. On the left here has the time. The next column has the signal strength in dBs. The third column shows the difference in time between my computer's clock and their computer's clock. You want it within half a second. So all these are just fine. If I get up above a second, it'll start showing it in red, telling me that my time is wrong. Or if everyone's time, I'm sorry, if one station's time is wrong, it's them. If everyone's time is wrong, it's probably me that's time is wrong. So the station is a little bit off, but not much. That's perfectly fine. They just finished up with the VE6. They sent 73. When they're done sending, I sent my call here now, and I'm waiting to hear from them again. So we will see that they called CQ again. They didn't hear me, so I'm calling CQ. I'm calling them again here. We'll see if it's successful. I'm just using a vertical and 5 watts here, so it isn't instantaneous all the time, but I get people. So any questions while we're waiting for them to answer me?
Tony, how long have you been doing this?
I started back in the JT65 days. I think it was March of 2021. And now this, just one second. The station, it turned red because they answered me. So he sent me a -3. I sent him a +22. So there's a big difference in our signals. He's probably using a beam. He might be running a kilowatt or 100 watts or whatever. I'm running 5 watts in a vertical. So I expect that difference, but it doesn't matter. So I said he was +18. He said I was -3. What's going to happen next is if he got my +18, he'll just give me a 73 Roger, or Roger 73. There he goes. Roger, Roger 73. That's the end of the contact. It pops up for me to log it. I do that, and it logs that station, and it's now done. I'm still sending him my 73, so it'll finish up here in just a few seconds. So I started in March of 2021, and I was there when FT8 came out, when FT4 came out. I've done about, I'll double check here and tell you exactly how many, but I have like 270 countries on FT8 and FT4, worked all states on 11 bands. So I have been doing it for a while, and it's all with 5 watts. Let me bring this up real quick here. So to answer your question, about 3.5 years probably. It hasn't been around really long, so this is my log on. I'm going to zoom this out here. This is my log on I dumped my log into a spreadsheet so you can see that I've got a few contacts. We'll zoom all the way down to the bottom. So right now I have 31,549 QSOs on FT8 and FT4 and JT65. 275 countries. Worked all states on 11 bands. I still need 2 states on 6 meters to complete my last band on 6. And I have a few on 2, not a lot. So let me tell you what this other stuff was that's on the screen here that I didn't talk about earlier. Down here at the bottom, is the band map. And this band map shows all the stations I'm decoding. And I'm decoding all the way from 18.100 up to 18.104. And it doesn't fit the whole thing on the screen here, but I'm doing 4 KCs of bandwidth here. Each of these little marks is a signal for a station that's transmitting. This red mark is where I'm going to transmit if I was transmitting. I'm not transmitting right now, but that's what that means. Let's back out and look at the rest of the interface here. On the WSJTX screen, we can change bands by clicking on this drop down. It'll take you to the right band segment. We can change modes by clicking on the FT4 button. FT4 is very similar. It has a little bit, it's not quite as strong. It takes a little bit a stronger signal. It's a little bit wider signal, but it's it's twice as fast. So instead of 15 seconds, it's 7.5 seconds. So you can see this is cycling through every 7.5 seconds. And if there were stations there, they'd be decoding. Let's change bands. We'll move to 20 meters. So there's different segments for FT8 and FT4. You can't do both at the same time. You can only do one or the other. The other thing you see up in the corner here is some add-on software. This is called JT Alert. This screen and the screen down at the bottom that's telling you where the states are and all that. These are two programs that work with WSJTX, but they're separate programs that you can install. And they give you other capabilities, such as these little badges up here instead of looking at the screen. Sometimes the screen gets very full. Also, if I double click on a station, it will go out to the internet and use QRZ.com to bring in information on the station's call sign and station's location and name. So there's only one station there. So we're going to change modes again. We're going to switch back to FT8 and we're going to switch to 40 meters. So you notice when we were on FT4, the signals are a little bit wider. We got an empty spot we're setting here. We need to wait for 2 full cycles though, because what happens is that was empty on the one cycle, but when we go through the next cycle, it may or may not be. And it looks like it's empty, so we're in good shape. So now we can just look at the band here, at the decoded stations, and see if there's someone we want to work. We simply double click on them. By the way, here's a station that has their time that's off considerably, 2.3 seconds. And you can see all the different stations that are here. If anyone wants to work me, and you want to get on 40, you're welcome to. I think we wouldn't have any problem with the trip. Now, let's find a strong station and work a stronger station here. So I double clicked on W5JMWM, and you'll see down at the bottom here, the software went out and looked it up, and he's in Buffalo, New York. His grid square, which is also, he's in Buffalo, South Carolina, not Buffalo, New York. And that's his grid square. I was going to say that isn't a grid square for Buffalo, New York. So I'm now calling him. He called CQ, and I called him. When I call him, I give his call sign, my call sign, and my grid square. And that pretty much eats up all the characters available to me. And then we have to wait. He'll transmit in for the next 12.5 seconds here, and we'll see whether he answers me or not. And he did not, so I'm calling him again. Now you notice we're seeing some other stations here, Maldives Islands, United Arab Emirates. They're not real strong. I wish I had my beam up, but the wind took care of that last August. I had a storm that knocked my tower down, so it wasn't. So I'm working without a tower, which is not as much fun as having a tower to work with. Okay. Other questions? Oh, if I want to call CQ, I simply come down to the bottom here. I choose the one that says CQ. I enable my transmit, and it will automatically be calling CQ instead of calling another station. It'll do a CQ with my call sign and my grid square.
Tony, what's your recommendation for a minimum laptop speed? i3, i5, i7?
It's not real critical.
Okay, so just about anything will work.
If you can run Windows 10 on it, it's fine. You can even get by with Windows 8, but I wouldn't do that. But Windows 10 or anything that'll run Windows 10 is fine. But you can also run on Linux. You can also run on Macintosh. So it's not, the WSJTX software is available for all the different operating systems.
So processor speed is of no problem.
No, not with anything. I mean, don't pull out your old 386 and expect that to do it. But no, you need it needs to be a machine that can run the current version of Windows or the current version of Mac or the Linux software.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, well, please feel free to take a look at all the materials. Again, tiny.cc/digiqso, where you can shoot the QR code, give you access to the whole slideshow with all the links in it. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share.
You did yet? Okay.
Sorry.
Anthony, we have at least
Yes.
one question in the room here.
Yes, please go right ahead.
Didn't hear me. Would you like to talk a little bit about Foxhound mode and Super Fox mode?
Yes, I can do that. So there's a special mode out there called Fox and Hound. Fox and Hound is used only for DX stations or rare stations, DXpeditions, things of that nature. And when they're doing Fox-Hound mode, when they're doing the Fox and Hound mode, the station calling is using the Fox mode. The station answering us, the people chasing them, use the Hound mode. They recently came out with a new version of the Fox-Hound called Super Fox, and Super Fox is a little bit different. Let me finish the station up. Okay, so to do that, you need to click on the File, and then Settings, and then there's an advanced setting. You click on this for special things. So if you want to work Fox and Hound mode, you need to be on Hound because the DX station is the Fox. But there's also a mode for VHF contesting, digital contesting, for Field Day, for RTTY Roundup, for FT8 Roundup, etc. The Super Fox mode, you click on this button. Now the Super Fox mode uses something completely different. On Fox mode, they'll be sending down at the bottom of the band, and what happens when you're on Fox and Hound mode is if the station answers me, it'll automatically shift my transmit frequency below 1000 kilohertz down in this bottom area near where they're at, and we'll complete the QSO there. So everyone needs to stay above 1000 during regular Fox and Hound mode. In the Super Fox mode, they'll be about at 750, and it's a very wide signal, but they're actually able to do multiple stations at one time with the Super Fox mode. Super Fox mode sounds completely different. It doesn't sound like the tones that you hear in FT8 or FT4. And I really can't demonstrate it without having a station doing it because I wouldn't be able to decode anyone that's here. They won't decode with the Super Fox mode. But that's what it is, and you're going to see quite a bit of the DXpeditions using the Super Fox mode. Now, it just came out, and it was sort of a beta type of software, and there were some issues this summer with some of the stations using it, but I have made a number of contacts using it. It works very well, although there were some initial problems, which I'm sure they'll tweak in the upcoming versions. Does that answer your question on it?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any additional questions before we wrap it up in the room or on Zoom? No, looks like we're all set on questions, Anthony. Thank you very much. Very informative presentation.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Tony, can you show that code again?
And Anthony, if people want to look up your information, you made reference to several presentations or slides. What's the website?
K8ZT.com. Kilo 8 ZuluTango.com. When you go there, there's a green button that says presentations. Just click on the presentations link and it'll get you access. I'll show you what that looks like real quick here.
And this presentation is one of the ones up there?
This presentation is not, because I just created this for you guys special, but it will be there soon.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Because they wanted an overview of digital, so I put this together. But this is what it looks like. Let me bring it up here real quick. So K8ZT.com. You click on this link that says K8ZT list of presentations, and it'll give you this list. This has there's a category on the left. There's a beginners category first, and buying, call signs, contesting, clubs, field day, FT8, FT4, general information, and so forth. Then it has the title of the presentation, then it has the slideshow, and then if it's been recorded by someone, I have the recording, it will show up here in the recordings list. And if there's other resources, it'll show up in this list, and then there's a date of when it was put together. So I have a few presentations.
Excellent. Apparently, yeah. And if your email address is up to date on QRZ, we'll send you the video from this one.
That'd be great. And let me just mention one other thing. I'm part of the Rat Pack group, and the Rat Pack group has 400 presentations that are all the videos available. It's ratpac.us. And when you go there at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that all their presentations that are available and the upcoming presentations.
Excellent. Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
So again, thank you, Anthony. This was very good. Appreciate it.
Okay. 73, everyone.
7-3. All right. Thank